Stash. This is Ed Garrett with Joe Gagel. One of our regular guys is not here because he has gotten married. So congratulations to Steve McGauley. Hope you're having a great honeymoon, and we'll catch you on the flip side when you get back. Of course, this time, Joe, we can really just talk about it behind his back, and he'll catch up on us later.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Sorry, Steven.
Sorry we're getting a late start tonight, but I have literally just gotten home from Heroes Con in Charlotte. That was a wonderful con. If you ever get the chance to go, you really should. It's a very fan-friendly con. Huge exhibit hall, lots of creators that were there. I've got a couple of the interviews already up on the site. I've got some more coming up tonight. Last night we put up ones from Chris Sabella, who co-writes Captain Marvel, writes Ghost, writes Dead Letters. We also did a couple of interviews. Frank Barbieri, who does Five Ghosts and a whole lot of other stuff. James Tynan IV, who does Batman Eternal, is already up there. And Van Jensen, who co-writes The Flash and also writes Green Lantern Corps. Those interviews are already on the site. Today we got a couple more. Matt Kent, who does Unity and Rye for Valiant and also does Mind Management at Dark Horse. And Mark Waid, who has done a little bit of everything for everybody over the years. I remember him best for his run on The Flash in the 90s, and really about everything that any Wally West fan likes about Wally West you can thank Mark Waid for. He's currently doing Daredevil. He has his own company with Digital Comics, Thrillbent, and we had a chance to talk about a lot of stuff, including Thrillbent, Daredevil, and his take on the present run of The Flash. So that's coming up later tonight. Do not miss it. It's a great interview. And yeah, I'll have to confess to being almost a little fanboyish there, getting a chance to talk to a guy who'd written so many great books that I've followed for years. So it was a great con. We've got a lot of cosplay pictures already up. We'll have some more up tonight. But again, wonderful con, always is. And if you want to get a chance where you can really just sit down and talk to some of your creators, obviously there are artists doing commissions, but like Mark Waid was signing literally stacks of books for free. While we were doing the interview, there was literally a guy that had a stack that big, filled with comics. It must have been 6 inches high. And he signed every one of them, was polite and kind, and the next person behind him had another stack almost as big, and he signed all of those. Just could not have been a nicer guy. But a lot of fun. I'm tired, but it was well worth it. Got to debut a few TM Stash t-shirts. This is my second favorite one. See there? I don't know if you can see that well. And I also have a black t-shirt with the white logo on it that is actually my favorite. Someday we'll actually make those available for folks, but for right now they're just one-offs that I was having fun with. So that's all the big stuff from Heroes Con. We'll talk more about stuff and watch the site for more news. Joe, what's going on in the Marvel world this week?
Well, this past weekend we had quite a big stir in a couple issues. I'm just going to go ahead and go off with Original Sin number 4. As I talked about beforehand, it ended with the death of Nick Fury, the old Nick Fury, and it was pretty shocking, but there are even more shocking events in this one as all these scattered teams of heroes investigating these cosmic murders have all come together to where the Winter Soldier has one of the Watcher's eyes and the head of Nick Fury, only to find out that they're still working for Nick Fury, and that was like a synthetic robot head, and it seems like he has more. So it really set up the next issue for that kind of twist, and these characters, still wondering, why are we here? What are the secrets that you're trying to protect? So I think that's a lot of that's going to follow into the next little bit of Original Sin. And on an indie take here, I've been following this series from Antarctic Press called 32-Bit Zombie. It started out as an 8-bit, went to 16, and now 32. It follows a kind of zombie virus theme in a game, and it kind of ends up jumping from the 8-bit system to the infecting the 16 and now to a 32. And it's been a really neat little story it's a black and white tale, and it's anybody who likes something cool for indie and video game stuff should really check it out, especially the zombie fans too, because it's got a lot of neat stuff in there. And lastly, I've got Uncanny X-Men number 22, which was pretty intense, a culmination story of who's behind all the Shield Sentinel attacks on the X-Men, and it all culminates with the character of Dark Beast, who was left over from the, I think it was the Extinction story, where he was brought over from the Age of Apocalypse timeline, and this really possibly could unify the X-Men against Shield, and it carries over into the next issue, which will be an original 10 the tie-in, the Last Will and Testament of Charles Xavier.
Oh man, that sounds really good.
That's going to be a two-parter that should that said that's either going to split the X-Men even farther, it's going to bring them together, but I'm on board and ready for it.
That sounds great. Now, there's a series that both of us have been following over at Valiant, and that's Armor Hunters. This past issue, you really got to see more of how powerful this group is. We've already seen what they've done to Mexico City, and I won't say more in case you haven't caught up. But I know you've caught up, Joe. But
yeah.
This past issue, we've had a couple of guys who thought they could go and confront them directly, and that would be Eternal Warrior and Ninjak. How did that go, Joe?
Well, kind of as you said earlier, they got their butts kicked, but they lived to tell the tale. And I liked how, even though they kind of had the thought of, I think it was Eternal Warrior who was kind of like, I don't know if this is going to work, and Ninjak was like, fine, I'll do it. And he just said, okay, here we go. Doesn't matter. So I like how they were optimistic. They didn't give up, and they made it out. But they know, they said towards the end, we're gonna need some more help, I think.
I really like too the side story where you've got Livewire trying to bring Bloodshot into the thing. Without talking too much about the story itself, but spoiling a little bit of the upcoming interview with Matt Kent, is that Livewire really was a character that had been there for some time. He wanted to have a strong female character in the story. They had debated creating a new character. He decided to take this already existing character and sort of bring her to the forefront. And if you're not reading Unity, you'll really be impressed when you get a chance to see what Livewire is. She is someone who had been a confidant and a supporter of Toya Harada, who's like the big bad guy of the Valiant universe, who finally realized she could not follow him anymore, and has really become a great heroic character in her own right, although she certainly has her hands full trying to pull Bloodshot back into the fold. Yeah,
and I really liked how, and I'm kind of newer to the series, but I liked how the Unity is kind of like, their Avengers title, whereas there's this gigantic threat that's got to Earth, and now you're seeing, especially in this issue, you're seeing these characters of the Unity Squad or whatever it is that are trying to mobilize to take on this front. And I want to say, even when they pick up Ninjak and Eternal Warrior, that Bloodshot and her are there, and that's when they kind of see him, and they're like, we're gonna need more help. So,
it's one of the great lines, and it spoils a little bit, but believe me, there's a lot more to the story. You won't be sorry if you pick it up.
And on a last note, and I'm not going to spoil the Mexico City thing, but I liked how when they referred to it, they were like, listen, it happened, we got to move on. There's nothing we can do to erase what happened. We got to accept it, and we got to move on, and because this is serious now.
Now, I will tell you, there was a Valiant panel at Heroes Con. They wouldn't give a whole lot of what's going to happen next. Tried to get more spoilers out of Matt Kent, couldn't get a whole lot. They've got some big stuff planned for the summer and beyond. And the one thing in Valiant, and they are promising this, and I believe them, in Valiant, dead means dead. And if someone dies in their universe, they're not bringing them back. They had, not this past week, but the week before in Harbinger, they had had the follow-up to the death of one of the renegades, and the way they dealt with the death and with the body, it was like this person is dead, deadity dead. They're not leaving anything to mess with. So they take a lot of risks in Valiant that are valid, dramatic risks. They don't just do things for stunts. But I have yet to read a bad Valiant book. They just impress me.
Well, as someone who just jumped onto this, I've been quite impressed with what they put together so far, and I look forward to the next installment easily.
Now, for folks who are not reading Valiant, just a quick thing. There's not really a bad place to jump on board. Every book they have gives you a one-page summary of the series to date, gives you sort of where you're picking up the tale, so you're never going to feel completely lost when you pick up a Valiant book. If you ask them for a recommendation, they'll always tell you, go back to X-O Manowar #1. That's the issue that gave the birth to the Valiant universe as it exists today, but there's really not a bad place to jump on. It's a good spot. Let me give you last week in DC. The big thing that I had a chance to take a look at that was a lot of fun is still Batman Eternal. We did interview James Tynion IV, and that's up already on the site, who's one of the creative folks behind Batman Eternal. That weekly series is just knocking my socks off. And this past week, it was sort of a weird Batverse Father's Day because you got the father issues for so many characters, including Julia Pennyworth, Alfred's daughter, who certainly has a grudge that he left her behind. He apparently had tried to see her over the years. He didn't want to see him. Now she's been injured. She's at the Wayne Manor, and he's trying to fix her up and also repair their relationship. You get a lot more backstory behind Stephanie Brown, who's been reintroduced to the New 52 and who is soon to take on her old spoiler identity. You get, pardon me, Batgirl doing everything she can to free her dad, who's in jail. It's just a great issue, and it's really well written. But coming up this week, this is big for any Superman fan, any John Romita fan. But Jeff Johns and John Romita Jr. are taking on Superman. This is Romita's first DC work ever. Taking on Superman in the new arc with their new character, Ulysses, the Man of Tomorrow, who apparently shares a lot of origin stories or background with Superman. We don't know much more about him than that, but this is a big deal for him to come over to DC. Can't wait to see what that turns out to be. Batman 32 Zero Year is going on. It's the next to last issue in that. Flash 32 continues the Future Flash storyline, which has been pretty wild so far. Justice League 31 has a new Power Ring, and Power Ring is the Earth 3 Green Lantern that was part of the Crime Syndicate. When he died, the ring sought out someone from the main DC Earth and is making her the new Power Ring, so we're going to learn more about her. Justice League Dark 32 is out. Batman Eternal 12 is out, so it's a big week for them. At Valiant, X-O Manowar, which continues the Armor Hunter storyline, and Shadow Man End Times. And if you've not been into Shadow Man, it's certainly one that's got a lot more supernatural overtones, but this has been a good mini-series, and they promise that number 3 is going to be huge. At Image, Chew is out again, which is one of my favorite series, and Saga number 20 is out. So all you Saga fans out there, that comes out this week. At Dynamite, you've got Turok coming out, Solar Man of the Atom, and Flash Gordon. At Dark Horse, the last issue of Serenity Leaves on the Wind is coming out this week. And you know, when there's a Joss Whedon kind of property out there, that's going to be a big deal. Captain Midnight 12 is out. Conan the Avenger, number 3. Ghost, number 5. Mind Management, 23. Star Wars Legacy, 16. Star Wars Rebel Heist, 3. And Tomb Raider, 5. So it's a big week for Dark Horse. And let me put in just a little quick ad for Thrillbent.com. That's Mark Waid's digital platform. It doesn't just have him. It has a host of other creators as well. But if you read the Empire series 10 years ago from DC, a series about a guy named Golgoth, who is a supervillain who has literally taken over the world. He wins. There's no superheroes to stop him. There's no one else to stop him. But what do you do when you've already taken over the world? That series, if you sign up for ThrillBent subscription price, it's $3.99 a month. And for one cost of one book, you get all of their books. And you will get a download of the original Empire series. And you get a chance to look at the first couple of chapters on the new format. It's a widescreen format that takes advantage of the digital format. I'm signed up, and I think it's a great deal.
That sounds like a great deal.
Oh, it really is. You should check it out. It's thrillbent.com. They also have an iPad app as well, so check it out. What's coming up this week in Marvel?
Well, it is a pretty big week. I've got a pretty big list here. I'm going to start with the original Sin times. We're going to have one in the Fantastic Four #6. One of the bigger ones I've been looking forward to is Original Sin number 3.1. It's Hulk versus Iron Man. When the secret bomb went off, one of the panels had, it had different characters saying, going over like things they saw, and the funnier one was the Hulk. He just looks angry and just says, "Hulk smash Stark." So apparently he learned the secret that he doesn't like. So that's going to should be a pretty interesting series. Original Sins number 2, and then a pretty big week for Spider-Man. We get Giant Size Spider-Man number 2, Amazing Spider-Man number 3, Spider-Man Spectacular number 1, a brand new series for the Hulk in Savage Hulk number 1, X-Force number 6, New Warriors number 6, all new Ghost Rider number 4, which has been a favorite new volume of mine. Wolverine number 9 continues the 3 months to die storyline. Or 3 months to live, I'm sorry, not to die. Uncanny Avengers number 21, which has been one of my absolute favorite series. Deadpool vs. Carnage number 4, which has been very fun. And, of course, the series that has gained a lot of steam in Guardians of the Galaxy number 16.
Sounds good. You just reminded me of one of the panels, and it was a Mark Waid thing. They were asking him about the difference on the comics and the movies, and he was saying that, while they're not being told you have to put this from the movie into the book, that there's some items that come from the movies that make sense. And one of the things he mentioned was the relationship between Bruce Banner and Tony Stark in the movies. And he started saying it was like there ought to be a book called Bruce Banner and Tony Stark Science Bros. But sounds like the Original Sin's going to sort of mess with that relationship a bit.
Yeah, and it is kind of neat because, the Hulk, he has had a lot of, good stories where he fights people like Thor and Wolverine and people that have that kind of, I guess, power to fight back and sustain. But Iron Man's a little bit different because he's very mortal. And so, you would think that Bruce Banner has to be in control enough so he doesn't tear Iron Man in half, literally. So that ought to be neat to see how that works out. And of course, Tony Stark's always prepared, so he might have a special Hulkbuster suit or something, like that up his sleeve. So you never know.
Sounds good, guys. We're not going to have all of our fancy usual introductions because that's what we depend on Stephen to set us up with. But we hope you've enjoyed the show for this week. We wanted to make sure we got something out for you. And again, watch the site for later tonight or tomorrow. We should have those other interviews up and more cosplay pictures up. Is there anything else before we sign off?
I think that's all I've got, Ed. Go get out on Wednesday and hit your local comic shop and get your new books.
Sound like a good plan, guys. Thanks for joining us, and keep on watching our podcast and digging the stash. We'll catch you around next week.
Later.